You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, we are YBM Chat Podcast. Instagram at YBM Chat. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at YBM Chat.
It's Dashia D.
Hey, it's Cassondra.
Hey, what's up? It's Tre'Dub here.
It's your girl, LadiiNova.
And we are
YBM Chats.
Young Black Millennials offer you a fresh new take you didn't know you needed. Forgot there's no boy ye. You're about to
great.
I know. Hold up. So I would say the past few years, especially this year alone, with the murder of Breonna Taylor and the incident that happened with Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez, there's been a lot of conversation about protecting Black women. And you see that hashtag everywhere on social media, but no one really breaks down what that means and what that looks like, and how to protect Black women. And so we decided to bring on some Black male voices to kind of get their perspective on protecting Black women. So we have Mr. David Hutchinson, who is from Charleston, South Carolina. He's been married for 10 years. He has 2 daughters, 12 and 7. He currently works for Dorchester District 2, and he has a lot of work in nonprofit life. And then we have Mr. Craig Logan, who is from Greenwood, South Carolina. But he's been in Charleston for a lot of years. He's the founder and CEO of Because I Can, right? Solutions.
Yep.
Educational consulting firm and a licensed insurance agent in South Carolina and Georgia. And he's also the vice president for the Shakur Cherokee Community Association and board chair for Kids in Play. And then we have Chad McCorkle, who is a Marion, South Carolina native. He graduated from Francis Marion. He has a bachelor's in accounting, and he is a data entry specialist. That was a mouthful. So my first question is, what does that mean to you all to protect Black women? And anyone can jump in.
Okay. Oh, well, for me, it means like just when I think about protecting Black women, I think about like my mom and Cassondra, of course. Like those are the 2 people in this entire world that I would do anything for, stand up for. So for me, it just means like being there for them. That's what it means. Like if it's like emotionally, financially, or physically, like protecting them, that's what it means to protect the Black women. For me.
Okay. Mr. Craig.
I didn't know who's next. Man, I think for me, protect Black women, of course, that the immediate circle of those Black women who, influenced us growing up, our grandmas, our moms, our aunts, sisters, all those things come into play. But I think for me, as I get older and kind of learn and grow, I think it's bigger than that. I think it's about the community, and it can be as small as like pulling out a trash can for somebody, for a lady who may stay next door to you. But I think it's ever evolving, but it definitely, is something that's just, like you say, right now at the forefront. And I think it's just us standing in the gap, being there, being needed, being there when we're needed.
Okay.
Ready for me?
Yes.
All right. So I guess for me, kind of piggybacking on what the 2, Mr. Chad already mentioned, Mr. Craig already mentioned, I would definitely do the same, just be like more proactive. And not just for the sake of waiting for something to happen, but just being ahead of the game. So for instance, if for instance, we had contractors in our house. A couple years ago, we had a fire. And as a father, as a husband, I mean, definitely that was a setback for 6 months for us to get out of where we are now and then move back in. But we had a lot of contractors in and out of our house. We had a bad ending to the contractor deal for one reason or another. But as a father, as a husband, meaning that I know that I'm away from the house a majority of my time from the day, I automatically said I got to put some security in place in regards to like a home security system. I'm not waiting for unidentified male to just pop up at my front door at an unidentified hour and whatever. I see my daughter walking or playing on her bike, and just having that conversation. So we're going ahead and put that in motion to make sure and very sure that they're protected. And I think that plays into also you all as women having that assurance proactively ahead of time puts you guys at ease and feeling your value without having it to be like, sadly enough, a Breonna Taylor or whoever else has experienced some form of dissatisfaction or just flat out disrespect.
Did any of y'all have something? Cassondra, Trey, Megan.
The only thing I'll say, I'll keep mine brief, that I 100% agree with every single one of them. That really is just, to be able to protect and to prevent any, traumatic events that could possibly happen. Us as Black men should definitely be there for our Black women to definitely prevent any, problems that could possibly come about, and especially in his case where he has, strangers that are coming around his family. So I definitely understand that.
I didn't want to jump in before y'all said something.
Mm-hmm.
No, I guess, and I agree with all of you guys. I think the one thing I thought about is Chad did say emotionally, but for the most part, the definitions that I hear most of the time is how to be there, like physically and protecting them physically from harm. And I almost wonder if that's like a patriarchal kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like we expect men to be super masculine by, if a guy talks crazy to her, okay, you jump in that way. But what about the other ways of protecting them beyond just, your family members? Because I think, Mr. Craig, you even said the community as a whole and not just your sister, mother, wife, whoever.
Correct.
I don't know.
I would agree. I would totally agree with that because like Mr. Craig already mentioned, yes, and looking at it as a community. So for instance, there have been times in times past I've sold seafood, whatever the case could be, and I meet a lot more women than I do men. So like right now, like it's black pitch dark outside. Say for instance, I got an inbox that said, "Hey, I wanted shrimp. I wanted whatever." Out of respect, being that I know it's not favorable for a young lady to be out in a parking lot waiting on me, because I don't want to meet you at your house just because you don't know me from a can of apple or whatever the case could be. But at the same time, I want to put you in a predicament where you're safe meeting me from step one. So I assure you, say, hey, we got all day Saturday, we got all day Sunday. The same stuff that I got now, I'll hold for you. Go ahead and disclose to me what you want. Let's find a central location that's favorable for both of us, and we can knock it out like that. So that in itself, for me personally, a lot of young women, middle-aged women or whatever age the person is, they feel reassured, like, okay, definitely you're looking out for my best behalf.
Okay. How do you guys feel like the ball is being dropped currently?
I'll go. I feel like now it's stemming because of social media, and it's just going further and further. So again, like you say, with like the Meg Thee Stallion situation, she said it when it all first started happening, because honestly, I just stopped trying to listen because nobody's answering the question. When it started, she said she didn't report it because she was trying to protect him. And considering everything that goes on with the Black men, I mean, clearly like goes on with Black women as well, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, she was afraid that he was going to get killed. Once the truth came out, then it was like, bash her, bash her, bash her, bash her, bash her. And it's like, well, she was the one who was injured. Why aren't y'all looking for it? So when you go and you really start to learn about people, can y'all still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your screen froze. I can hear you.
Yeah. Once you go into those comment sections, you really start to learn about people, because all the guys, I mean, it was a mixture of both, but you see, why do you automatically believe her? And she's the one that's out here been hopping from dude to dude. Every time you see her on social media, it's somebody new, it's this, it's that, and it's like, that has nothing to do with anything. And it's like, why can't it just be, let's hear both sides of the story and not put just her down? Like, he was still a man in the wrong for doing what he did, but it was all on her, and it's still all on her, because no matter how much she tries to put herself to the forefront and do things the right way. So when she came out with her Protect Black Women speech on these platforms, it was deemed that she's milking the situation. And it's just, oh, now you want to protect Black women because something happened to you that you probably caused, because everybody know how you get when you get drunk. And it was just like constant. And it never really went to him. Like, he got little stuff of just go back to your hometown, he's a shrimp, this and the third. But for her, it was just like, oh, if I was him, I shoot her too. Can't you see that bee is tall? And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? And it keeps going. So from celebrities, and then you have other people that are just trying to make it in the community. You have women that come up with their businesses, and people feel like, well, that's not enough, you need to do something else. It was like, I started this, I just want support from you, like I supported you with your project. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm already doing what I got to do, and I'm not gonna stop for your stuff. So it's just like a lot within it.
I'm gonna say something bad. I don't want to take us somewhere else before anybody else answers the question.
I mean, I totally agree with Megan, what she was saying about social media. Me personally, like, I feel like social media like highlights like the worst in people when it comes to that specific situation. Like, they're not going to show the guys that are standing up for her. They're just going to highlight the ones that are like bringing her down. Well, I will say where we dropped the ball is not standing up to the guys who don't stand up stand up for Black women. That's where I'll say we kind of dropped the ball at there. Because I know a lot of people who don't stand up for Black women, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't say nothing to them, but I feel like I could say something to them to at least try to change their mind or their stances on certain things. So that's where I feel like we dropped the ball, personally.
Do you feel like the guys, well, in that specific instance, who are bashing her are just louder than the men who would disagree with that?
Not necessarily louder. I just feel like social media highlights a lot of negative stuff more than positive stuff lately, especially 2020. This whole year has just been negative after negative after negative, and we barely see the positive stuff on social media. That's what I think personally.
So for me to chime in, so just thinking like how we're dropping the ball, right? Because I mean, I think it's something that's still going on. I mean, I look at, for me, when I think about that, you look at the history, like, of the Black woman, right? So to be a Black woman, you're facing colorism, right? Because there was black and white, and then also you have man and woman, right? So at the core of all that, the Black woman has always fallen to the bottom, and I think just like as like Black men, as we started kind of pulling ourselves up, right, and just in society, right, in a societal standpoint, in higher places, really reaching down and I think like pulling the Black woman up too as well. I think that's one way that we just have dropped the ball, and even just small things like it's completely small, but I just think about small things like, for the longest I had, so we're dealing with insurance, you meet a whole lot of different people. I had an older lady, she had been with her husband for about maybe 30 or 40 years. Beautiful thing. Husband died, right? Well, everything was in the husband's name. He paid every bill. He did everything. So when he died, she didn't know how to do anything, and it's just small things like that. We take the defined concept of what it is to be a man, right? And yeah, all those things do hold true, but I think the other aspect of it too is like, empowering our Black women, you know, and like I said, you know, as we inch our way up on that pole, we got to make sure we're reaching down, I think, and doing the same thing for our Black women. So just being inclusive all around with it.
Piggybacking off of what you said, sorry, Mr. David.
No, you're good.
Do you feel like Black men, much like the rest of society, has bought into the narrative of the strong Black woman? And so maybe Black men think that Black women are just very resilient and we got it on our own. We don't really need you guys. So we don't need that assistance for you to pull us up and be side by side.
I don't. I mean, I think we've always had strong Black women, don't get me wrong, in the aspect of if it's raising a family or if it's in the aspect of going out and starting a business or excelling in a career or whatever. But I think like our millennials, right, our younger Black women, absolutely, that is their mindset that they're in. But I think, you know, like my mom, our parents, my aunts and uncles, and I mean my aunties and things like that, all of them, like it's new to them, you know, a lot of that's new to them. So I think it's, yeah, the younger generation more so, but older generation, not no.
Okay.
Going back to what you were saying a minute ago about dropping the ball, I feel one of the things that grinds my gears a lot is when I hear the term, and you've probably heard this too, behind every Black man is a successful woman. And I say that from a place generally, like literally there's a legit show that's on mainstream TV that literally has the title Behind. Now, behind implies lesser than, meaning one is greater than, one is lesser than, or one is ahead of, one is behind. I always say, you're not behind me, you're beside me. Like, ain't no, it's just because from the beginning of creation, she was pulled from his ribs. So in other words, he is a part of her and she's a part of him. So in essence, when two people come together and join as one, there isn't no one is greater than the other. So I think right there in itself, mentally, yeah, not to mention, it's just like you said, it's just looking at it like from what Mr. Craig mentioned a minute ago in regards to how history has just the lapse and the things that women have had to overcome. Now, speaking from my mother's perspective, she is every bit of 74 years old, but she would attest to being the only African-American nurse in a building, in a local hospital, a thriving hospital in Charleston, South Carolina, and being the charge nurse, or being the nurse that runs that entire unit. People, doctors that did not look like her would literally do laps around the unit looking for someone that pertained to his skin complexion and looked like him because he didn't feel that she was enough. Ironically, I read a book to my daughter last night. It's funny because she wanted a bedtime story at later in the hour, and the book was entitled I Am Enough. And that book, I mean, I've read it a few times, but it ties into our conversation again. And sometimes I feel like women can play the point of, am I enough? You know, because you're always having to step above and beyond. And even if you do, you don't get the credentials that others get. But going back to what you guys were talking about as far as the scandal, I don't know much about it because I don't keep up with that stuff, to be honest. Based on what you're telling me, I'm just going to be honest. I ain't trying to fake it. I did try to Google it or whatever. But based on that right there, I mean, it's obvious. In the social media world, I look at it as a fantasy world. Like, honestly, you got to take it for what it is. There's some things that are right on, and the other things are just fabricated. And let's just be honest, social media thrives on likes, loves, shares, trolling, all of that stuff that comes with it. And if she's going to be whoever she is always going to be the better of, because it shows through fights, through misunderstandings, and all that other stuff.
I really like what you said, Mr. David, about you not really caring for that phrase, behind every Black and successful Black woman. I think that, and I really appreciate that you mentioned that, because I feel like that phrase is such a traditional way of thinking.
Yes. It's
so traditional. And I think that now that we are in the millennial stage, in the millennial generation, that a lot of Black women, or a lot of Black women, have that same mind frame that you think, and which I think is very remarkable, especially in this day and age where a lot of women are in office, like currently right now. So yeah, so I really appreciate what you said about that, and I 100% agree.
Yeah, I never thought about like that either. And I am glad, like Trey said, that you brought that up, because it's always been like a thing, like, oh, behind every, black, and it's just like, I guess I never thought about it. For me, I always thought about how everybody else thought about it as, okay, well, yeah, he's super strong, but in the shadows, it's that strong black woman that's pushing him, and like you said, like, they don't really get the credit or the, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, well, yes, she's beside him too. That doesn't mean she's less than. So I really, really like that. I never thought about that before.
But now that you've heard it, I promise you, every time you hear it, it's gonna prick at you. And you rightfully so, you got a right to call people to the carpet. Like, rightfully so, because in essence, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't care any successful male, whether he is married or not. There's a grandmother, there's a mother, there's an aunt, there's a woman in his life. There's somewhere there was a nurturer. Right. And it don't get no better. It does not get any better than what we have, to be honest with you. So the strength of where we pull from, the reason why we could stick our chests out, the reason why we could be confident knowing that she has poured into us, whether she's a spiritual woman, she prayed for us, or she's just an outright, look, I'm gonna speak it up for my man, like right, wrong, and indifferent.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I don't know if this is going to go into your next question, Dacia, but it's to hear him say it, and it just makes me, even though I'm just meeting him tonight, it makes me feel better as a black woman, because you don't have too many guys who are going to stand in the forefront like Mr. David just did to say those things. People, they'll, she pushed him forward, but it wasn't all her. So like, who is it? I don't know what her name is. Gucci Mane's wife.
Keisha.
They'll always, well, now out here, they always give it to Gucci, and Gucci did this, he did this. And it's like, no, he was incarcerated. He didn't do anything. She did. She took whatever stuff that he had while he was in jail, took the money and flipped it to businesses and helped him out, helped him to become a better person, or tried to be a better person when he came out. One person that I do respect, I know Dacia knows him, but Kev on Stage. He'll be quick to let people know, if it was not for his wife, they could have lost a lot of stuff, because he just wanted to do the way he wanted to, and he felt like as the man, he was supposed to lead and he was supposed to follow, because that's what he was taught. And he was like, if he did not fall to her and realize what she was saying was right, their family could have been screwed trying to live off his dream and his dream alone and his male ego.
This is not in my questions, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Going back to Gucci Mane, since you brought him up, I remember it was a couple of months ago, either he posted or Snoop Dogg posted, but they were going down the list of things that Gucci Mane and Snoop Dogg did to their wives, and how they just stuck it out with them, and how they're a true ride or dies. Now, I've always said before, why do I need to ride with you, and why am I dying? I've always said that.
Queen and Slim.
I don't need to do that. But all that to say, because I said before, we've talked about protecting Black women physically, right? What does it mean, and what does it look like to protect Black women emotionally?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a disconnect when it comes to Black men and Black women, especially our generation, when it comes to being vulnerable with one another, being able to share emotions and talk about real things beyond, oh, I'm gonna stick up for you, I'm gonna beat this person up if they mess with you. So I feel like what I'm asking is that a part of protecting Black women? Like protecting them emotionally?
Yeah, I mean, emotionally goes hand in hand, because I mean, you can't look good on the outside if you are literally torn up on the inside. And it doesn't make you any lesser of a man to encourage, or just to hear. I mean, you guys, y'all aren't shy on words. Let's just be honest. Y'all can articulate everything from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. I mean, you could tell us what we smelt like when we made you upset. You could tell us like what the weather was the day that we had you on Sky High. Like it's like you're not shy to that type of stuff. But personally, it's just I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just a lot, I would say. But I mean, that's just me.
Absolutely. I think the emotional aspect of protecting Black women is just as important, if not more important, than the physical, protect Black women, right? Because, that's something that we're going to do, right? Nobody's going to mess with mama, grandma, sister. Growing up, what? Sister said somebody did what? Cuz I'm calling uncle. Look at Daisha. I know.
I can't.
Greenwood, you already know we going to get the family. And we coming with it. But that's cool, right? But like, when it's time for that man then to join in with this woman and become one, right? Can you, like y'all said, be vulnerable? And I think we talk about vulnerability. One thing, like with with the consulting company, one thing that we've really been working with our students on is like the aspect of healing, right? And like when you talk about healing and you pair healing like with the Black man, it's a lot of stuff, right, that we have to unlearn. It's a lot of stuff as far as just like that we've been taught from, now at a couple different perspectives. We've been taught from our Black women, right? And then also we've been taught too, just from like visually from seeing it too as well. And I think like when you start that process of healing, it's something that's not easy. It's something that's like not like fun, but it's necessary because, with the Black woman, I mean, she can't just read our minds or try to figure out what's going on. A lot of times when I have conversations with my homegirls about whatever it is, they'll say like, I just don't know. He don't say nothing. I don't know what he be thinking. And that's true, because I've been on the other side of it where it's like I felt some kind of way and I might not have known how to communicate that. And although I know like, man, this is really damaging whoever this is on the other side of this, but it's like, man, that's something that you got to like unlearn, and it's something you got to want to do. So, I mean, it's just as important, but from a Black man's perspective and just looking historically at the Black man too, it's something that's learned, and it's something like, I mean, it's something that I encourage everybody, like, it's something that we have to do, because just to be a better person, just to communicate with people, even just not even relationship wise, but just out in general in the world and stuff, like it's necessary.
I mean, but like you said, that's kind of how that's how men are socialized, Black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter who you are. Men aren't taught to look within themselves internally and be able to communicate that. So if you weren't taught how to communicate it, how could you? And how could you be there for someone else to help with their healing? That's a tough ask.
And then also, I know earlier, like we had earlier episodes about, I'm glad you mentioned that, Craig, about like being able to communicate with people, because men have always been taught like, oh, if you show your feelings, you're sensitive or you're being emotional, and then it's like, oh, well, you don't know how to bring that off or talk to a woman about it, because then it's like you don't want to come off as sensitive or you don't want her to think, you know what I mean? Like, how do you talk without coming off as, too
Not
sensitive?
manly.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to protecting Black women, like, I don't know, I treat them like how me and you, Cassondra, like, I support you, I talk to you. I don't know, like, I think it's super important to protect Black women emotionally. Like, if you're not happy, then emotionally, then I'm not happy emotionally, because we're both married. And that goes for like any Black woman I love. If you're close to me, like, I'll try to be there for you emotionally. Like, you could just talk, bring you up, support you, whatever you do. Like, I find it hard because like I wasn't taught to do that. I had to like learn to do that, especially with you. Like, I don't know. Like, I was raised by my mom. Like, I didn't have like a father figure in my life, but I didn't have nobody there telling me, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. Emotionally, I think I just had to learn over time. We had to talk. We had our ups and downs and stuff. I think that's one thing that we need to do, like, for further generations, is teach them how to talk to or be emotionally available with the black women, because black men, like the older generation of black men, they tell you to suck everything up, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that. I
Man
feel like that's yeah, man up. I feel like that's one thing that we need to do with like the younger generation. Tell them it's okay to like have feelings. Of course, you don't have to like be this macho
That's
man
fine all the time.
24/7. Yeah, that's what I feel like we should do.
And I think it helps that we're talking about it, like getting it out. Because I feel like a lot of the times, like you said earlier, Dashia, people don't think about it. Like when you think about protecting black women, they always, well, for the most part, people think about physically, they don't really think about emotionally. So I think even now we're doing this podcast is getting out. People are going to listen to it. People are going to think about it. People are going to talk about it more, and then it is going to help younger people. So I love that we're doing this.
Yeah, I was going to say like, sorry. I was gonna say like what Chad said, the one where he said was support, and that could be taken either like two different ways. You can support their dreams, or you can just think that you're supposed to support financially, and what most men are taught is financially. And that's not the end all be all. So you have people from our generation or a little older who have learned from much older generations that the man is supposed to take care of like financial stuff. He's supposed to bring the money in and the woman be at home. Females don't do that now. If anything, females have been in the forefront from what I could see, bringing out their businesses, like contributing to the community, coming up with new ideas to try and bring people together and all this other stuff. Most of the Black Lives Matter pictures I've seen, a lot of the women were in the forefront. You have a lot of pictures of them like really raising their voices, raising hell, putting a lot of force on people's backs, and they still don't get the support when it's needed to be reciprocated. I've met a lot of people along the way where I'm telling them like, this is my dream, this is what I aspire to do, and it's, oh, you don't have to worry about that. If you're my girl, then you can just stay home and I'll get the money for you. And it's like, that's not how this works. Going back to what y'all said about the ride or die thing, I don't want to ride nor die. And where are you going to be at if I needed that?
Yeah.
Because, of course, the generation likes to bring up Remy Ma and Papoose. That's literally like one that y'all got.
That's
like
an anomaly.
you have that one female that went to jail, and that one dude that I can recall stayed with her through it all, got married, have a child, still working together as a unit. But the minute, again, sorry, male egos, the minute a female gets emotionally involved with a guy and they're literally just talking, having conversations that she's been trying to pull out of you, oh, you're a cheater, you're a whore, you've never been nothing, you've never been this. And it's like, this is the stuff I've been trying to work with you on for 7 years. We're always the ones that's made to be like, once the guy comes around, it's like, well, he's trying now. And it's like, yeah, it took 10 years. And I am emotionally drained. I am mentally drained. I am physically drained. There's no more that I can do with this. The minute a woman does it, oh, you done cheated on me, you was talking to somebody else, we're finished. You making me look stupid out here. Bro, that just happened one time a week ago. Yours happened 7 times throughout this entire relationship.
But what is it that makes women stay in situations like that?
That I can't answer. That I
Lots of different reasons.
Why?
Well, no, I will say this. Again, depending on who raised you, a lot of older generations will tell you that that's what goes into relationship. You have to constantly work at it. And that's just...
In other words, compromise.
Yeah, pretty much put yourself at the back burner because this is the person you want to be with. This is pretty much the end all be all. They make females think you're not supposed to die alone at a certain age. You're supposed to be married and have someone. So if you're at a set age, me now, I'm 25. So if it were me, they would tell me, oh, you need to start winding this up. There ain't no time to look about careers and nothing like that. You need to be trying to find a man, be stable, have a house, and whatever it takes, you lock that man down. And it's like, but I have qualities too. Why isn't he trying to lock me down for my qualities? Why do I have to try and lock him and he's got this one thing that he's focused on, which is paying the bills, not trying to make the relationship grow, not actually trying to learn who I am as the girlfriend, wife, or whatever. It's just a lot of factors.
I would say, and to your point, let me just say this, LadiiNova. To your point with that, that's where you're picking relational versus transactional. And I say that because settling prematurely into something that does not, for the long term, is going to benefit you is a transaction, as opposed to a relationship that's, I feel like the intimacy is beyond like the bedroom action or whatever, but like the being able to, you know, see where each other is going and offer suggestions of what would work and what would not work, but also not living to the expectations of others. So often the people that are putting these things out to us, yourself and myself, as far as these deadlines, they themselves didn't live within these guidelines. They were rebels. They themselves, you know, their family dynamics is shot. Let's just be honest. You know what I mean? And I don't got to put any names to it. I don't got to put any specific scenarios to it, because all of us can think back to somebody that offered us some advice that they themselves didn't follow through with. So I applaud you for not feeling subjected to just like settle or feel like, okay, I'm lesser than, but saying, hey, I'm enough, and I'm not going to like turn this around and say, am I enough? Like, do I need to go ahead and jump? Because I've seen people that jump into things that prematurely and they make a hot mess out of it. You know what I mean? And even if it doesn't work, it just didn't work. But you realize that after the fact, you weren't pressured into it because, oh, by the age of 30, I got to be married. I got to have 2 babies. I got to be a homeowner. You know, I got to be successful in my career. And I can say that because personally for me, I did not complete my undergrad by the age of 22. I did not complete my undergrad by that time. I felt internally like, you know, the pressure was on. But you know, like I know with that alumni sitting behind you, they only offer certain classes at certain times or certain semesters. Not to mention, you go in there thinking you're going for 1 degree, and then like a day later, you got like 7 different directions you're trying to go. So I get that, and we're all in that place where you're trying to figure things out. But I applaud you for not settling, and I say that, and it's just like, it's so much I can say, but I'm gonna pull back. Y'all go ahead.
I think it takes a long time to get to the place that LadiiNova is in, of like, you know, this is what I bring to the table. What do you bring? There's a such thing called trauma bonding, which we talk a lot about in school. And it's like people repeat the same kind of behavioral patterns that they grew up with, that your parents love you. They teach you how to love. And kind of going back to what we said earlier, if you weren't taught how to be vulnerable and communicate, a woman who wasn't taught that may not feel comfortable enough to open up to a guy, and vice versa. So he may not be able to communicate all of his feelings. And instead, what does he do? Like Gucci Mane or Snoop Dogg, they go to other people and try to distract themselves with sex, other women, whatever, and break, you know, this person's heart, and just keep repeating the same cycle until they get to Megan's place of, you know what, I'm done with this. I want to do something better. I feel like that's the major reason, is trauma bonding and thinking that you're going to, like dating the same people over and over again and thinking that you're going to get it right this time, but you're just repeating the same cycle with a different face.
Or you're going to fix the person that you're now with because,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you went through 7 of them and you keep, or why do I keep attracting the same type of person? Like, what is it? Or whatever the case could be. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that was
go ahead.
I mean, but I definitely think it's a process, though.
It is.
Through that.
Absolutely.
Let me say this. I was recently in a Fortune 5 company's job just last year for 7 years. And a young lady, she had been divorced. You know, she's raising her 2 children. And she and I would always converse. And she'd be like, well, when's my husband coming? I'd be like, look, he's coming. But what I loved about her was, and I was telling somebody this, she never told me who she was dating at the time unless that dude was around for 6 months or greater, and whatever the case could be. And I respect her for that. But also, like, she had, you know, prerequisites of what the next thing was. Needless to say, she is married now to the love of her life. But she's married now to a guy that literally you could tell when she came into work, I would always laugh at her. I was like, oh, you were flat-footed, you were normal. But literally when she met the man of her life, like literally she was like skipping in there. Like you could see it all through her face, everything about her. And before I met him, I already knew he was, because there were a lot of things she'd mentioned. It's so many things organically that'll check off that you will know internally or whatever the case could be. But if you settle, you're gonna find yourself, it may be what I would consider artificial flavoring. It's sweet in the moment, but the overall good for you, it isn't.
Sweet and low.
Yeah.
I forgot majority I was gonna say it. But,
sorry, man.
Maybe once. Go ahead.
But it was answering your question about like is emotional being emotionally there or emotionally protecting Black women.
Yeah,
It kind of wrapped it all up, and it was basically just starting with communicating. And what I will say is now being 25, like David, Chad, and Craig, I was raised not to show my emotional side and not to be like or a punk in a way too. But now, and Dashia will tell y'all that I come to her a lot. Well, all three of them, to be honest, Megan and Cassondra, about a lot of my like adult issues when it comes to like relationships and stuff like that. And that honestly makes me feel. I recently had a stress situation that I came to Dashia about, and that one conversation really like made me feel so much better. And I feel and I know that me moving to Atlanta out by myself, I don't have no kids or anything like that. But even then, with self, we all have stress. We all have stressful situations, whether we have a family or we're just, on our own, being independent, stuff like that. So I just say that to say that definitely start with communication, and in turn to, just start to have the conversation to kind of know what is it that's bothering him or her to kind of, hopefully succeed in a relationship or a friendship or whatever the case is. So yeah, that's all.
Maybe as people continue to grow and the conversation of therapy is being more normalized and people are really looking inward, there will be Black women who don't feel the need to settle because there will be so many people out there who know how to communicate and share and be vulnerable. I guess my last question would be, what do each of you feel like you could do to better protect Black women? And that's including us, the women who are on the panel. Like, what is it that you feel like you could be doing better, if anything?
I would say encouraging each other as a Black woman, from a Black woman to a Black woman, encouraging each other. I know we talked about this before too. Not being like, jealous or, just catty about it. It's like, letting them know we love each other. We're supporting you. I feel like a lot of times, especially our age, it's more like competition wise, like there's no competition. We are together, you know what I'm saying? Like, whether I know you or not, you're a Black woman, you're my sister, you know what I'm saying? Like, we need to encourage each other and, just be there for each other, honestly.
I think for me, I want to make sure I'm answering the right question. Can you answer the question again? Answer it again.
So, what do you feel like you could personally do to better protect Black women?
Okay. All right. I was right. All right. I mean, so like, what I think I can personally do, is so with Big, we had a interview with I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this story. It's called Stanford, or it was a thread, but it was Stand with Jennifer. It was a 32-year-old single mom up in New York, had purchased a house, saved and worked really hard for it. She was a nurse and pretty much was being harassed by her neighbors. A guy on Twitter heard about it, and I think he was in another part of New York. It's about 40-minute drive, but for 90 consecutive nights, he slept outside of her house just so that she could have peace of mind. And the students in Big did an interview with him, and one of the lines he said was, "I'm not an activist, I'm just active." And like, that blew my mind. Like, it really just like did something to me because, a lot of times, hey, people want clout. I mean, like y'all said, social media nowadays is for likes, it's for double taps, it's for all that. But I think even moving beyond that, it's cool to do it for that. But like, small things we just have to do, like I said, in our community. So for me, one thing I'm really just trying to do is just, like we said, about the emotional aspect of protecting Black women, not just physically doing it, because we're gonna put our little boys in football. They're gonna get that aspect from uncles, from whoever, right? But the aspect of saying like, hey, if you are upset, say you're upset and tell us why you're upset. And a lot of times what I found is they don't even, like, our kids don't even know how to communicate why I'm upset. I just know I'm upset, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a foundational thing. So like, I know for me, hey man, I'm sitting here thinking, man, how would my life have been different if I would have learned communication, or what communication was at a young age, and learn how to communicate and learn how to self-advocate, right? And self-empower and empower others. So I think for me, like, the little piece that I'm trying to do is just make these conversations that we're having, right, more accessible to the younger generation. So like, to the babies, to our kids, because hey, they're the next generation. But also I think like, I'm just so, I'm excited to see what a generation of like, not even emotionally healed people, but like people who are actively working towards like wanting to get better with that, and wanting to be a more effective communicator, and wanting to like, you know, get the whole picture right. So for me, that's just it. And then also too, and this was a big thing for me, and somebody mentioned it before, but when we see negative actions in our brothers, in our best friends, in our homeboys, call it out, you know? And a lot of times it's like, another thing that we just taught, hey, we mind our business. We do too, but like, right is right and wrong is wrong. So I think that's one thing that, you know, we have to do, is just really be more accountable and hold other people accountable when it really comes to protecting Black women.
I think that he really hit the nail on the head. Is really what it's about. In my personal definition, or my personal way to answer your question, is to, number one, make them feel safe. Again, not physically, but also emotionally. Short story that I told these three that I had to tell, that I really had to share because it recently happened, that has a lot to do with this subject. So I went home back to Charleston for the holiday. I was at my dad's house, and two of my homegirls was with me, you know, just hanging out. We're having a good time, you know, drinks is flowing and stuff like that. So I'm outside talking to my two homegirls, and then one of our friends, or one of my dad's friends, who you know, come around every so often to hang out during a gathering. So all four of us were sitting down, and you know, we're having a conversation, and one of my homegirls, she has a dress on. And the other guy who's sitting on us, he just, you know, of course he's inebriated. All of us were, but not to the point where we couldn't control ourselves. So yeah, he's, you know, giving like a little touch on her knee, like, you know, hey, that's funny, which it was friendly at first. And so, you know, then it starts to get a little too friendly. He starts like, you know, doing little rubs on her leg, like the lower part of her leg. And like I said, she has a dress on. So, you know, I told him, all right, okay, you're getting a little too friendly there, you know, just stop. You know, like, you don't know her like that. This is my friend. I brought her over to my dad's house to have a good time with me. He doesn't know you. So she doesn't know you. So he stopped, did it again after like 5 minutes or whatever. And I was like, okay, listen, stop. Now, this is the second time I've told you. So he stopped for a little while. Third time he does it again. And I told him to stop yet again. So then the fourth time, he's now going over to dangerous territory towards her upper thigh. So I didn't physically harm him, but I did physically have to move his arm from her so that way he could have gone away. Mind you, my father, if y'all know my father, he was in the house, he did not see that. So, but yeah, it was just in that moment where, because I'm gonna be honest, I've never, even though I was raised by a single mother, my mother really worked a lot to raise me and my brother. So, you know, it was just like, we honestly wasn't really taught how to, you know, protect our Black women. And in that moment, that moment really taught me a valuable lesson. Like, you know, it's just my grandmothers, and then my aunt and my mother and stuff like that. But in that moment, I was like, listen, I have to protect this Black woman because she is a friend of mine. She doesn't know this man. And even though nothing happened, something could have happened if I wasn't around. So I just wanted to share that briefly.
I truly appreciate you for sharing that, because that, in essence, it was a number of, I feel like a number of things that happened in that moment that you were basically saying it's not okay, and you weren't just being passive, and you weren't being disrespectful, but you were being forward and letting him know, look, no, that's not okay, because this right here, like moments like that could go way deeper, and she could feel offended and have scars.
Right.
It could bring back a trigger. It could be a trigger, you know. Yeah. But like you're saying, no, it didn't take you like throwing him to the ground or whatever. And I don't know what happened, but apparently you took care of it. I'm glad you did. Mm-hmm. But you were ultimately, I feel like, sharing what pretty much Craig was talking to as well, and that's just that the big empathy piece, and just making sure that, you know, all I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Because at the end of the day, her self-esteem and her as a person, she shouldn't feel less than, and not just an object to feel like, oh, I could, you know, caress her and then now just flat out disrespect her.
Right. Thank you.
It's crazy. I was about to say, it was crazy that Trey said it. I don't know if he remembers, but this is why I have kept him as a friend for so long. Because, you know, most people always telling you men and females can't be friends. Something's going on. It's like, no, that is not the case. When I transferred to Coastal, a friend of yours was doing my hair, and this random dude came into the apartment and would not stop standing over me.
Oh,
he wasn't a student.
Okay,
okay, so you remember. He wasn't a student. I don't know why he was there when I was getting my hair done, and at first it was just the three of us, Trey, myself, and the girl doing my hair. And he just stood over me, and I'm like, bro, what? He was like, you smoke? I was like, no. Okay, that's cool then. That means you can sell for me. And I was like, excuse me?
Oh.
No, I cannot. It literally came out of nowhere. I was like, no, I cannot sell for you. I am a student. I don't know who you are, but I know you're not one because you look like you way older than my sister. And at the time I had to have been like maybe 20 or 19 going for 20.
This was like, we was both like 20 around that time.
So I'm like, could you please move? So I saw Tre'Dub on the side of me. He was waiting for his opportunity. The girl completely stopped doing my hair. Crazy kicked into me because I had scissors right next to me and his junk was like right there. I'm like, Brad, I told you I don't smoke. I don't deal with that stuff. Leave me alone. And he just kept pursuing. And Tre'Dub was like, hey, Brad, she done told you she don't do that. Leave her alone, get out of her face. He's like, all right, bro, all right, cool. And I'm like, why did it take all of that? Like, I'm telling you, I don't do that. I'm not selling. And I've been sitting on this floor quiet this entire time. So for people to step up, I don't care whether it was Tre'Dub who did it or the girl who would have said it, to step up and make it known, like, I see what's happening and I see you're uncomfortable. That makes me feel better. Because again, you have a lot of people that see that females are in uncomfortable positions and they do nothing. Because one of the videos I saw on Facebook, I don't know where it was, but it boils me every time. This young lady was just trying to go and pay for her gas, and a group of guys just came and swarmed around her and was like, we ain't letting you go until we find out your name, this, that, and the third. And she was laughing out of nervousness because what do you do as a female in that situation with so many guys around you? And they just kept going, and other guys are videoing it, nobody stops it. You can't get another female. Like, I think her friend was trying to come out the car and it was like, oh, you could get it too, so all, like, the both of y'all can be in the circle. And it's like, where was that one or two people to be like, bruh, this is not okay, let me guide her to the store and guide her back to where she needs to be at, to make her feel like she's not just an object. So as my parents taught me, charity begins at home. For me, I'm going to start with, in my friend group, trying not to be demeaning towards people. And I'm not gonna lie, that's hard because people piss me off. And you start with me and I have a thing to retaliate, and I'm working on that. I have younger cousins where, as females, I can teach them, know your worth, know that you are enough, know where you want to be, and that you have a voice. My male cousins, having feelings does not make you soft.
Right.
You know, opening doors for females, like like knowing how to cook a meal and clean, that does not mean that you are not a man. I don't know why they place that in men's minds, but that does not make you soft at all. These are things you should know how to do. And just hopefully once I teach them, it'll just go forward within themselves and in their homes.
Okay. Chad?
Well, for me, I guess just a combination of what everybody said. Like, me personally, I think I'm not perfect. I mess up sometimes when it comes to, like, supporting Cassondra or like Black women in general. I think I would just get better every day with supporting and like learning how to support Black women. And also like what I forgot who said it, but like with our community, like start going out like helping Black women in our community. And also like crap, I lost my train of thought. But
That's okay.
yeah, yeah, that's what I would do. Like just like every day. Just get better every day with it.
I agree with everyone. I feel like I remember everything pretty much that everyone said. Supporting other Black women. I think one of the biggest things that I learned since high school, I was very quick to judge people who weren't like me, whether they were really loud or geeky down. I just
or from Greenwood.
or from Greenwood.
You described Cassondra just now, loud and geeky down.
A little bit. But I guess knowing that every experience is valid, and just because I don't have the same experience doesn't mean that something is wrong with that person. Like I don't know their story. Also in my career, like what I do, I purposely quit my last job because I wasn't meeting with enough kids of color. And so now, both of my schools, I have way more Black and Latino kids. And so teaching them in therapy, like how to communicate for themselves, how to advocate for themselves, especially the girls that I have. And other than that, I feel like that was pretty much it. I don't see myself ever getting in between people, a man and a woman fighting. I'll just be honest. But I did listen to that interview that Vic did, and he made a good point. He said, you know, if you're afraid that your safety is at risk, you could just say, oh, y'all might want to stop doing that because cops are coming. Or just coming up with something that's going to distract that person so that they can leave said woman or man alone. Anyone else have any final thoughts or words? Nope. All right. So comment below. I would like to hear, what do you think it means to protect Black women, and how do you feel that we can improve as a community? Join us every Monday.
Like,
comment,
subscribe,
and yes, us up.